Somebody pointed out, the crime scene here that you started off with, that analogy, is a large one.
Yes.
The whole universe. And it's really cold, billions of years old or whatever, potentially.
Yes.
We fill in answers here with these explanations don't work, these ones don't, these don't. And so you've put God in the gap there.
Right.
So several were bringing up that this sounds like a God from the gap argument.
Okay, so let me go back to this for a second. I very much understand and appreciate that. Before I run out of power, this always happens to me. Let me just plug this back in. So let's take a look at our cumulative case, just to see what this looks like for a second. So here's our I think I've got it up there. Okay, good. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so what we're looking is, all of us have a burden to explain these 8 things. All of us do. We do. It's not just me. It used to be, well, you're proposing that there's a God that I can't see, therefore the burden's on you to explain something that I don't see. If you're positing there's some, fairy God out there, great, but the burden's on you to prove it. That's not how this works at crime scenes. At crime scenes, we get there and I say, okay, look, I see all this evidence. I think the husband did this. And my partner says, you're crazy. Her sister did this. Really? Okay, well, I'm going to give you the 5 reasons, the burden that I feel I bear to demonstrate that the husband did this. But you have an equal burden because you think those same pieces of evidence point to the sister. Okay, great. You have that burden. Each of us has a burden to explain why we think our cause can account for the evidence. So I'm not the only one who carries a burden here. I have a burden. I think that a spaceless, timeless, all-powerful, immaterial, personal first cause can explain this. By the way, most of my friends who are atheists, we don't disagree on much. We all believe we're looking for a timeless, immaterial, non-temporal first cause. The only question is it personal or impersonal? That's it. Is it some law that is impersonal that causes all this to come into being? Or is there I think that the burden then is, if you think you can get this with space, time, and matter, show me. No problem. Oh, you've got like 2 theories that don't work, but you still think it's just space, time, and matter and physics? Science of the gaps.
Works both ways.
Your explanation's not working, but you still want to run with it. Okay, I get it. You just think, hey, this is what they typically will say too, by the way. This is not uncommon. I get it, Jim. We can't explain how life in the universe began, but we will eventually. How is that any different than I can't explain it, but I'll ask God later? It's the same exact approach. No, I looked at your explanations for this. They stink. Okay? But if you're committed that it has to be without a divine intervention, that's just science of the gaps. It's that you refuse to go to anything. Look, this, I think, points to personhood. Remember, if there are objective moral truths, like it's never okay to torture babies for fun, those aren't just moral claims. They're moral obligations. We feel objective, transcendent, moral obligations. Now think about that for a second. I am not morally obligated to inanimate objects made up of matter, physics, space, and time. I'm not morally obligated to this chair. It's impersonal object. I have no moral obligation to it. But a person who's sitting in the chair, I have a moral obligation to. If there are objective, transcendent, moral obligations, who is the objective, transcendent, moral person I'm feeling obligated? You're not obligated to physics or space or time. But you know there are certain moral obligations. The better explanation is a first causal agent that is personal. This isn't God of the gaps. It's reasoning to the most reasonable inference. To deny personhood in the first cause is science of the gaps. You can't explain this otherwise. You can't explain that. You realize that at least Sam Harris is an honest atheist. He says, yeah, you don't have free will. It's an illusion. Do you guys think that your free will is an illusion? If so, you're not really thinking right now, because you can't have rationality without freedom. You've got to consider 2 options and freely choose which one you think makes more sense. But if you can't freely choose the options, you're just destined to believe me or destined not to believe me. It was predetermined. You don't believe that. Sam Harris does believe that. Then why write a book, Sam? You trying to convince me? What's the point of that? I can't be convinced. I can't be changed. I can't change my mind. I either agree with you or I don't. See my problem? So I would say, no, it's not that it's a God of the gaps to infer this. The same burden is on the other person. Then it's just science of the gaps if you don't. What it really comes down to is this the best explanation, best inference from evidence?